Hello and welcome to Real Estate in Focus. When you're considering to purchase a property that is already tenanted, ranging from a small property with some kind of tenant in the basement to very large commercial properties, you have to understand that there is risks involved. You might be later on obligated to some kind of legal challenges. In order to understand the importance of how you can probably avoid some of the challenges that are going to come after closing and the type of properties that you're considering to buy, we have called Maria Diaz. She is specializing and focusing on real estate properties to understand what are the risks are assuming a tenanted property.
Well, I think the biggest risk for everyone when it comes to tenants, whether for commercial purposes or for residential purposes, is the what if the tenant stops paying my rent.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, especially in an economy as we have right now, that is becoming more common. One of the things that I always advise purchasers when buying tenanted properties is to look at the lease. It's very important, especially whether it's commercial or residential, to look at your lease and look at what it is and who it is that is renting your property. For example, if you have an individual, then perhaps it will be a good idea to do a credit check on that person prior to buying the property or continuing with your lease. You should also look, or if it's a corporation, you can do your normal corporate searches to make sure that the corporation is in good standing and that they have not filed for bankruptcy or that they don't have major loans. Now, in terms of tenancies in general, if you are buying a residential property, you fall under a different act or a different law than it is if it's a commercial property. When it comes to the tenant protection for residential properties, you have to understand that it is much more difficult to evict or to let go of a tenant. So that's why it's very important to do those checks prior to closing that property.
So, sorry to interrupt you. So basically you're assuming the property with the tenant.
Yes.
And you have no option because they might have a lease.
Yes.
Or unless this is a single residential property or a unit that you want to move in as your principal residence.
Exactly. Usually the landlord tenancy boards do not like interfering with the lease. So it's important, as I said, to do that background check before assuming that tenant and purchasing that property. Usually, for the most part, tenants are good tenants.
Right.
However, sometimes you do end up with a situation where you do end up with a bad tenant. And for those circumstances, you do have to be prepared that it will be a long battle with the tenancy board to get them out of the property, especially if they have a long-term lease.
Right. And I think one of the other things that might help and avoid a lot of misunderstandings might be tenant acknowledgement form. My understanding that this is a form that the tenant signs, that this is my deposit, these are my terms, and this is how much I pay per month, right?
Yes, for the most part, most of the tenants will sign those forms, and normally they will sign those forms. But more importantly, we hope that you should also get something from the vendor saying that the tenant is up to date, so that if the vendor did lie to you on closing and did not tell you the truth or the complete truth, and the tenant is not up to date on their rental payments, then you can go after that landlord or
Right.
your former vendor.
Right. So thank you, Maria.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming. And it is important to understand that when you're buying a tenanted property, there are things that you should consider. You have to do some kind of background check, and it is not very simple that you're buying a property. You're buying property with people living inside that property. If they have a lease, you have no option but to assume them. So this is something important when you're considering buying a property for investment purposes. Thank you for watching.